Enough is enough. I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane. The censor version, folks. Caution. The following video is an in-depth review of the movie that I'm currently reviewing, which means that there will be massive spoilers in this review. If you haven't seen this movie yet, then please feel free to watch this movie first before watching this video. However, if you have already seen this movie, or you just want to know my thoughts on this movie, then keep watching. Snakes on a Plane was a really interesting movie that came out in 2006. Before the movie company The Asylum came out with mockbuster films, there was Snakes on a Plane. Now granted, Snakes on a Plane wasn't a mockbuster film as the premise of the film was totally original, but the movie does have the makings of a mockbuster film with its over-the-top story and action sequences. It just happens to feature big-name celebrities like Samuel L. Jackson. It's also important to note that the film was going to originally be called Pacific Air Flight 121, but Samuel L. Jackson suggested that they call the film Snakes on a Plane when the title became a huge online meme. Guess it's a good thing that the film was called Snakes on a Plane. And while the film wasn't quite a huge box office success at the time, it did make a profit, and I guess you could say that many people still remember this film to this very day. So before I give out my thoughts on this movie, here is a brief summary of the film. The film starts off with a young man named Sean Jones, played by Nathan Phillips, who accidentally witnesses a murder of a prosecutor by none other than international gangster Eddie Kim. It was then that Eddie Kim and his men started to hunt Sean down, and when the FBI finds out about this, they decide to have Sean be put under the escort of Agent Nelville Flynn, played by Samuel L. Jackson. Sean now has to go to California to testify against Eddie Kim, and so Nelville accompanies him on the plane to keep him safe. But unfortunately, Eddie Kim discovers that Sean is heading to California, and in order to prevent Sean from testifying against him, he ends up releasing snakes on the plane to bring the plane down. Now Nelville, along with the passengers on the plane, have to find a way to survive the snakes while keeping the plane afloat. As I mentioned before, Snakes on a Plane was quite a unique film for me when it first came out. Not only was it one of the biggest films of 2006, but it definitely became a film that was infamous among viewers for its over-the-top premise. So the first thing that I liked about this film was the premise. Sure, the fact that the movie's about a bunch of snakes overtaking a plane and killing off most of the passengers sounds ridiculous on paper, but the movie manages to make this concept so much fun to watch, and I especially love the scenes of the snakes attacking the passengers and causing untold mayhem on the plane. The movie definitely delivers on the concept of snakes being on the plane, as there are many scenes of the snakes attacking the passengers, and those scenes are downright brutal. One of the scenes that always stood out to me was the scene where Paul, who is a cruel businessman, throws a hotel heiress, Mercedes' dog, to a large python, and the python ends up eating the dog. It was definitely a distressing moment for me, since I love dogs and I always feel so bad whenever something bad happens to a dog. So of course when Paul ended up getting eaten by the same python that he threw the dog to, I was smiling a bit during the whole scene, since he pretty much got what he deserved. On the other hand, the film did a pretty good job at making this concept as over the top as possible. Sure, having snakes on a plane is scary, but seeing Samuel L. Jackson's character killing off snakes in the most creative ways possible really made this movie entertaining to watch. Another thing that I liked about this movie was the acting. Almost all of the actors and actresses gave it their all in this film, even though this film was pretty ridiculous at times. But the best performance in this film was definitely Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of the character Nelville Flynn. Samuel L. Jackson did a fantastic job in making Nelville a tough as nails character who not only is trying to protect Sean from a vicious gangster, but also tries to protect all of the passengers once the snakes get on the plane. I also love how Samuel L. Jackson's performance as Nelville Flynn was bombastic and intense, as he did a good job at balancing Flynn's serious nature with his more over-the-top actions. It really made Flynn into such an interesting character for the film. I also really love the interactions between Flynn and Sean. Even though Sean is nowhere near as tough as Flynn, he has really good chemistry with Flynn, and you can actually see the strong bond between these two characters, even though they were brought together by certain circumstances. I also love the performances from the plane passengers themselves. Even though they were mostly in the film to either be killed by the snakes or be saved by Flynn, their interesting personalities and panic when the snakes attack really made them stand out in the film, and the scenes involving the plane passengers were just as interesting as the snakes themselves. Probably one of my favorite plane passengers was Mercedes herself. Mercedes may be a hotel heiress, but she is shown as being a very sympathetic character who is willing to help out the passengers the best way she can. And you actually do feel bad for her when her dog gets eaten by a python. Now, here are some issues that I have with this film. One of the major issues that I have with this film was the antagonist Eddie Kim. So we know that Eddie Kim is a ruthless international gangster who ended up killing a prosecutor, and when Sean witnesses this, Eddie Kim tries to prevent Sean from testifying against him. Eddie Kim then releases loads of snakes on the plane, which causes the main conflict of the film. Aside from that, we don't really know that much about Eddie Kim as a character, and he seemed to be put into this film just to explain to the audience about how the snakes got on the plane in the first place. It kind of made me wish that the snakes just got on the plane through a force or something like that, since they definitely have a bigger presence in the film than Eddie Kim did. Another issue that I had with this film was the pacing. Even though the snake scenes were exciting from beginning to end, there were some other scenes in this movie that slowed down the pacing for this film. It kind of made it hard for me to sit through the entire movie because of some of the slow scenes that had nothing to do with the snakes. Snakes on the Plane is rated R for language, a scene of sexuality, and drug use, and intense sequences of terror and violence. If Samuel L. Jackson's iconic line didn't raise any flags for you in terms of how much strong language is used in this film, then there is definitely more strong language littered throughout this film. Also, the snake scenes can be downright terrifying for anyone who has a fear of snakes, as we get to see the snakes biting and killing people left and right in some pretty gruesome ways that would make your skin crawl. Overall, I give Snakes on the Plane a score of a 7.9 out of 10. Even though the pacing can be slow in places, and the main antagonist Eddie Kim isn't really developed that well, this movie is absolutely fun to watch. The snake scenes are some of the most terrifying yet entertaining parts of the film, and the over-the-top acting from the actors really made this film fun to watch. If you want a big, dumb, fun action and horror film, then you should definitely check out this film. Hope you enjoyed my review on Snakes on a Plane. Hey guys, like this video? If you want to check out more crazy content from this channel, then please hit that big old colorful subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra generous, then please support me through Patreon so I can make more awesome content for this channel.